Looking for the ultimate software-defined radio application that works not only on Windows, not only on Linux, but OS X as well? Stay tuned because I think I have exactly what you're looking for. Interested in radio communication and software-defined radio? Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future content. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. I actually want to walk through the actual process of working with SDR++ along with you as we record the video here. So this is the first impression you're going to see. It's a very familiar interface. It's something a lot of us are used to while maintaining that cross-compatibility. So I wanted to show you how to jump in, start using the application, and give you a quick rundown of some of the features that it has and different things that you can do with the application. So the first thing we're going to want to do is select our radio source, and there's a ton to choose from here. Of course, we're going to stick with the RTL SDR, and you'll see here just below it, this is actually a drop down to show you what devices that belong in that category, in this case the RTL SDR, are currently enumerated or being shown on your machine. And as you can see, it doesn't see one right now. That's because I forgot to plug it in. So we're going to go ahead and plug in this SDR, and you see we have this handy refresh button. We can just hit that real quick, and it automatically now sees that we do have an RTL SDR connected to our computer. So let's go ahead and hit our play button as we normally would. And you can see quite quickly here we have the FM broadcast band. Everything is up and running just fine. Now, typically I've noticed that with the RTL SDR, you're going to start with your gain all the way at 0. So I already had this up and running a moment ago. I had it turned up. So that's probably going to be the first thing you're going to want to do is turn up this gain a bit so you can actually see what's going on around you in your overall spectrum. Now, of course, we can also change our sample rate. Now, that's something you need to do when the SDR is not running. So we can stop it, change our sample rate to whatever we want, hit the play button again, and that will start our SDR back up. Now, you'll notice that the noise floor has actually changed. And we can go over to these sliders here and adjust that, bring it up and down, as well as the strength here. Just as we move our scale up and down, you can see the coloration changing here along with it. And I typically like to get the background fairly blue, if not dark, so that way you can see only the stronger signals that are really standing out in your FFT as well as your waterfall. And the nice thing with this is you have all of your typical features. Okay, you have your offset tuning, you have your AGC and tuner AGC. You can even select the I or Q branch for direct sampling. That's great if you want to do HF on an RTL SDR. But here's a feature we really haven't seen in a lot of other applications except for, say, Cubic SDR, and that is the option to enable the bias T on your RTL SDR, which is just great and handy to have that right there in your graphical user interface. So as you can see here, if we are to swipe along the waterfall, or if we swipe along the FFT, we are moving our radio module around. We're moving our VFO. And of course, we can do the same thing up here in our little frequency display. Now, let's say you want to move up and down the band a little more easily. Just grab the frequency bar here below your FFT, and you'll be able to move up and down the band instead of simply up and down the slice of spectrum that you're currently looking at. Right corner, you see we have an SNR or signal to noise ratio meter, something a lot of people have asked for in other applications, and we're finally seeing it on SDR++, so that is really cool to see. Moving down here, let's take a look at the other modules, and that's something that's really important to note with SDR+, is that it is very modular, and you'll see as we get into this how those modules interact with each other and how it makes it such a powerful piece of software. So our radio module is pretty straightforward. You get to change your mode from, wideband FM, narrow, AM, double sideband, upper sideband, lower sideband, CW, and raw. And of course you have various options depending on what you are selected with here. So you can change the bandwidth of that signal. Of course, we can also zoom in here, and we can just grab on here. And when we get the arrow, we can just move that instead to change our bandwidth. Let me actually switch to wideband FM. That makes more sense. So you can see that it is easy enough to move with this as well. Let's go ahead and zoom all the way back out. From there we have our recorder. This is really nice. You get both the audio and baseband options. This is similar to stuff that you've seen in, say, SDR Sharp, for example. So a baseband recording is going to be things like your IQ or your raw IQ files, which can be played back. Or you might want to do an audio recording where you are only recording what you're hearing come through the audio device, basically whatever it is you're listening to in your VFO window. Below that, we have a frequency manager. This is pretty handy because you actually have a drop-down category here. So we can add a new bookmark, and if we want to, we can change the name, we can change the mode, the bandwidth. It'll save all of that for us. We hit apply. Now we have a new bookmark, and you'll notice we move away. That particular signal is still marked for us, and it is labeled new bookmark. So we can see exactly what that signal is, where we found it, and we can easily get back to it. Now, of course, you'll see this in your FFT, but you'll also be able to select it in your frequency manager as well. Let's say you want to create a new category. Let's say we want to hit the plus button here, and we're going to call this broadcast FM. Just as an example, we'll apply. And so now let's go ahead and do this. We're going to come down to general, remove that, and I'm going to go to broadcast FM. And let's go ahead and add that to our list. There's a bookmark there. And if we move over here, we'll keep both of these in the window. We're going to add another one and new bookmark 1. So now you can see that I can select either one of these and easily go back and forth between the two. Something else you'll notice here, if we come down, we can actually import or export this. So you could share a frequency list with a friend, for example, or maybe you want to back this up before upgrading your release, just to make sure that you don't lose anything. That is also an option as well. Get out of here, Macron Reflect notification. We don't need you. And so let's come down here. There's a few more options, actually a lot more options we need to cover. We have our Vfo Color. Now, this is really what comes back around to what I mentioned with this being modular. So, for example, we take our VFO. The current VFO color is white. We can come down here. We can make it red. We can make it black. We can make it blue. Whatever we want to do, we can basically come through. Now it's yellow. So we have a couple different options here. Let's go with yellow because it's obnoxious. Or maybe it looks like a highlighter, however you want to look at things. Now, keep this in mind because we're going to come back to this. There's a lot more options tied into this because of this modularity. Next we have our band plan. So the band plan is actually exactly what you're seeing right here. It's this little banner that says FM broadcast. As you move into different frequency bands, this banner will change to let you know where you're at. So for example, let's say we go to 449. Now you can see it says 70 centimeter ham band. So it's a nice clean way to see exactly where you're at. But let's say you're not in the US. Maybe your ham band doesn't correspond to my ham band. Well, you can come over here in our band plan and you can select France, Canada, German LTE bands. We've got Russia, USA. You've got your general band plans. And you can also add custom band plans as well. You also get the option to move where you want this particular label to be on your FFT, a nice little feature there. We can also completely disable it. And let's say we don't want any banner at all, we can turn that off. Next we have our display. So we can do things like hide the waterfall if we just want an FFT. We have the option for fast FFT, as well as the full waterfall update option, which, if I'm not mistaken, is simply updating your waterfall at a much higher rate. So if you want a more visually crisp and clean waterfall image, this would be a nice way to get that. You can also change the frame rate. You can change the frame rate manually, or just by selecting the plus and minus here. So you can make changes to your frame rate, your size, the window, as well as even changing the color map. So that way you can change essentially what the different colors along the spectrum map out to on your waterfall. So there's GQRX, electric, plasma. You get a couple different options here. Mine, as a personal favorite, is going to be the classic here. And now we're getting into some more interesting things. Here is our syncs. Now, this is again coming back to that modularity. Syncs is basically where your audio is being driven. Right now, we have a radio VFO, or the radio module, if you will. And this is currently being output as audio into a cable output device. And you can also manually change the audio for this particular sync. Now, why would there be syncs listed here? Well, that's because we can do multiple VFOs. And I want to show you that. We're going to skip over theme here because, I mean, it's a theme. And we're going to go right down to the module manager. So from here, we can actually run multiple instances of any of the modules that are in the software. Depending on the module that you're using, other modules may update with change such as Vfo Color or your individual audio syncs. So let's go ahead and come down here. I'm going to create a new radio module called Vfo1. Then we come down to the drop down box and we're going to select radio. Hit the plus and now you'll see we have Vfo1 and we have radio. You'll also see that under syncs we now have radio and Vfo1. So what we can do here is we can have multiple VFOs, both listening to 2 different signals, or 5 or 10 different signals, if you will, and you can pipe them out to different locations or different audio devices. This gives you the ability to do things like decode multiple Inmarsat signals at the same time. You could also do the same for, say, pager signals. If you went up into, for example, in my area, pager is going to be around 9:29, and I'm in an apartment right now, so I may not be able to hear it. Oh, there's a pager right there. So you can see where having these multiple VFOs or radio modules allows you to very extensively go in and have a way of listening to multiple signals at the same time. Of course, like I said, because it's modular, we can also come back up to Vfo Color, and we can see Vfo1 is now listed here as well, and we can change that Vfo color as well. So now we have a red VFO and a yellow, and as we hover over top, we get the names of the respective module or VFO, which certainly comes in handy. There's a lot of different modules in here. We'll get into some of these other ones in a different video. And the last thing down here I kind of wanted to touch on, unfortunately I don't have everything set up to demonstrate it, but this is the rig control server, and you'll see this in another video. What this particular software does is it allows you to interface with something like gpredict, which is used for satellite tracking, and then automatically control SDR++ on your behalf, so that way you don't have to manually shift in frequency for the Doppler shift, or that drifting you see when listening to a VHF satellite, such as NOAA's APT satellites. There's definitely a lot more that I'd like to cover on this particular piece of software, but unfortunately, I only have so much time in the place I'm at currently, but I wanted to get a video out here just to give you a quick, clean overview of what the software is, how it works, and honestly, I've just been completely blown away. This is hands down, in my opinion, probably one of the best SDR applications that have come out in a really long time now. If you haven't tried SDR++ yet, I highly recommend you do so, especially if you're one of those users who are on OS 10 or if you're on Linux. This might be the move up that you've been looking for, because on Windows we've had access to other applications in the past that have a lot of similar functionality, although maybe not necessarily all in the same place. We do have a lot of different applications at our disposal, and I really haven't seen anything quite like this that runs on Linux or OS 10, and I think we finally have the perfect SDR platform for going out there and just looking at different signals, taking those signals in, decoding things through the use of virtual audio cables, and it really just simplifies things on a whole new level. This project is being run by RiseEarth. If you guys are interested in helping support the project at all, please go ahead and get a hold of their Patreon. Go ahead and join it if you have the extra money and can afford to do so. It helps them out so much in getting this software put together. You can see I am one of the patrons as well who supports the project, because this has just been an amazing feat in my opinion. I've been watching this software kind of in the background grow up from this little, waterfall and FFT into this full-blown application that does everything I ever could have wanted for a basic, bloat-free application that I could use to just go in and get work done. And this is just exactly what I've been waiting for. I hope it's what you've been waiting for as well. We're definitely going to do more videos on this. If you're interested in seeing me, listen into a satellite along with Doppler shift or anything of that nature, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. And again, description below will have a link to RiseEarth's Patreon. If you'd like to support them, it's very much appreciated by them. And quite frankly, it's much appreciated from me as well, because software like this really wouldn't be there if there weren't great people who were willing to support these amazing creators. And, with that being said, my amazing patrons, thank you for supporting me. That's part of why I am here. And I cannot wait to see every one of you in the next one.